Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Sally Baretta, live from Johannesburg. Your top stories tonight.
This is the time to put South Africa first. This is the time to put South Africans first.
President Ramaphosa urges the country to buy local as he outlines a number of interventions to address unemployment. A stern warning from the police minister to criminals in the Westbury area as the Baretta unit moves in. And a groundbreaking liver transplant performed by Wits doctors from an HIV-positive mother to her HIV-negative baby presents a potential new pool of donors that could save countless lives. And let's start with that job summit, putting South Africa first, Labour, government and business working together to create jobs. President Cyril Ramaphosa opened the job summit this afternoon with a rallying cry for our economy. Now, he's announced a number of interventions to create jobs. By any measure, it's a mammoth task. There are over 6 million South Africans without work, 9.5 million if you count people who have given up trying to find work. So, is this just another talk shop or a real moment of change? I'm joined by our senior business reporter, Dimakatso Tugwana, who spent the day at the summit. Thank you so much for joining us here on eNews. Before we start chatting, let's have a listen to a clip from that opening speech earlier.
Through this job summit, government, Labour, business and the community sector have agreed on concrete interventions to boost employment. And a number of those who've been looking at this summit and saying that this is going to be another talk shop have been dismissing the efficacy of this summit and its effectiveness. But we would like to say that this time around we are determined to implement the various interventions that Labour, business, communities and government have come up with.
So, what are these interventions, and specifically concrete interventions and commitments that have been agreed on? What have you seen that gives you hope that this indeed will not just be another talk shop?
Thank you, Sally. For instance, there was talk that the private sector had committed to invest 100 billion rand to black businesses as part of that transformation agenda. So I think that is a good thing to do to try and develop that sector. But also, you know, the government will now talk to financiers like banks and whatever and try and come up with strategies to help those companies to access finance. But another key thing for me was the fact that all these interventions are expected to create at least around 275,000 jobs over 5 years. This is over and above the 300,000 jobs commitment that government has done over the next 3 years.
Well, that certainly sounds very promising. Some of the analysts that I've heard speaking have said that without economic policy stability and structural reform, which means changes to things like tax laws, the red tape around opening a small business, policy certainty on property, privatization, without those tough calls, we're not going to make any real headway. Those tough calls are very hard to get agreement on.
They're very hard to make. You know, especially within the ANC alliance, where you've got COSATU, you've got the SSAP, who are pushing a left agenda. You can't talk about, you know, retrenching. For instance, now they've said that there is a moratorium on retrenchments in the public sector. The private sector has committed not to cut jobs, but we'll see if that happens. But going back to your question, privatizing SAA, privatizing Eskom, these are issues that have come up over and over again, but they're not happening. Why? Because of COSATU, you know. So government, the ANC find themselves, the ANC-led government, they find themselves in a very tight position. What do you do to please your alliance partner? You know, but at the same time, you need to grow the economy. We know that the president has injected this 50 billion rand, which we'll see where the money is going to come from, because now what they're doing is robbing Paul to pay Peter, or Peter to pay Paul. We're going to see who's going to be robbed and who's going to be paid, right?
Absolutely.
But there need to be a give and take in terms of how do you grow the economy to create these much needed jobs.
Well, I look forward to your insights after day 2. Thank you so much for joining us here on eNews. That is our senior business reporter, Dimakatso Tugwana. Well, let's hope those plans and commitments actually deliver jobs, because it's tough without work. It's a reality for over 9.5 million South Africans. Our reporter Aviwe Mtila reports.
This is Buti Chabalala, a street vendor in poverty-affected Alexandra Township. On a good day, he makes 350 rand. He's one of the people who could benefit from the job summit.
Fat cakes and polony, just some of the things that Buti Chabalala wakes up at 3 a.m. every morning to come and prepare for people that are going to work in Alexandra Township.
Chabalala says finding work has proved close to impossible, despite his qualifications as a civil engineer.
The main problem that we are facing, no jobs at all. Because of even to want a job, they will ask you, do you have 5 years experience? So we don't get that 5 years experience because you're coming at school.
With all eyes focusing on the job summit, analyst Makwe Masilela warns delegates that talk is cheap.
We hope we're not going to make this another expensive talk shop, because if we do, then it's just so unfortunate. So far as South Africans, and just like many people, we know what's wrong. We know what is it that we need to do, just the willingness to implement.
The recent spate of fuel hikes has already seen the price of commodities rising, and it appears the trend is likely to continue. And no doubt, a jobs bloodbath will be inevitable. So will the Jobs Summit help create employment, or will it just be another talk shop? Will this summit help bring South Africa's high unemployment down? Only time will tell. Aviwe Mtila, Johannesburg.
Some breaking news for you this evening, and we go live now to Ekurhuleni. We believe at least 40 people have been injured. 2 trains collided at the Van Riebeeck station. So far, no fatalities reported. Let's get the latest now from our reporter on the scene, Kailihle Khumalo. Good evening, Kailihle. What can you tell us about this train accident?
Well, what we know, Sally, is that there were 2 trains here. So one of them was actually stationary and the other one was in motion when it's rammed into the other one that was stationary. But perhaps to get a sense from this, we're joined by William Ntladi briefly to take us through to what we know so far. So, Mr. Ntladi, thank you so much for joining us. What do we know so far concerning this horrific accident?
Thank you so much for having me. Emergency services actually received a call around about 17:50 this afternoon, and on arrival we found that now 2 trains, metro rail trains, have been involved in a crash. So we basically had to work with other stakeholders to try to mitigate the situation. It was quite chaotic. We found that as per information on site, there was a train that was already on the platform with some mechanical challenges. So it was still on its way to Pretoria. Then the secondary train came from behind and crashed into it. Subsequent to that, we had scores of passengers who were injured, but ranging from minor to serious but stable conditions. The reason being that now, so far, we haven't actually recorded any fatalities. We do have rescue personnel as well from emergency services of Ekurhuleni who have conducted a search inside all the carriages of both trains, and so far we haven't found any fatalities or any injuries. And one can confirm as well that now this is a multi-stakeholder type of incident whereby we've got the SAPS, and out of all that we do have the leadership of the city of Ekurhuleni here, the MMC of Transport who is here together with the other MMC of Finance and other leadership as well, to come and see as to how will they be able to assist those in need, consulting and contacting the Metro Rail and PRASA leadership to mitigate the situation. Thinking that now to arrive in Pretoria with the rest of other passengers who were here destined to Pretoria via to various areas in Pretoria, then that is telling us that now they will definitely need a transport, alternative transport to go up until in Pretoria where they are destined to.
All right, thank you so much indeed to William Ntladi from Ekurhuleni Emergency Services. So far, what you know, Sally, is that about 6 to 7 people have been taken to various hospitals just in the vicinity of this particular train crash.
Thank you very much. That's Kayalihla Kumalo coming to us live from the Riebeeck station where one train crashed into another. Now there are people in hospital tonight, 67 in hospital, a lot of other people stranded who were on their way to Pretoria. Moving on, the community of Westbury is now under the watch of the Baretta. Now, the specialist police tactical response team arrived in the area earlier today and wasted no time searching houses believed to be crime dens. There was a hive of activity as they moved from house to house following the lead of a community fed up with crime and bloodshed. The presence of the Baretta will be the new normal for Westbury residents. They've been calling for swift action against criminals for some time now. The police's top brass led the charge, sending a message to criminals, gangsters and drug dealers.
The guys you saw here, they don't carry those things. They carry live ammunition because they are sent to the higher risk activities. They are here for gangsterism, remember? So we can't give them rubber bullets for gangsters. So it's a toe-to-toe kind of approach with them. So that's why we were warning whoever who's thinking to take them on, that would be very tough for you.
Other stories making headlines today. Students at the Soshanguve campus at the University of Technology are worried that their academic year is going down the drain.
I'm pleading for our campus rector to please open the campus. It's enough now. We've learned our lesson. It's out of hand now. We really need to go back to classes.
Now, in August, the death of a student allegedly at the hands of police sparked violent protests and the closure of campus. TUT says it will only reopen when calm has been restored to Soshanguve campus. The ANC Youth League and other student bodies have given management until tomorrow to announce a date to reopen. They're threatening to open the gates themselves if the university doesn't comply. A groundbreaking medical development that could see people with HIV donating their organs without passing on the disease. That's the big news from the medical world today. Wits University doctors have revealed details about South Africa's first liver transplant from a mother living with HIV to her HIV-negative baby. Now, the groundbreaking surgery took place when the baby was 13 months old. The child was born with end-stage liver failure and would have died without the operation. The op took place over a year ago. Both mother and baby are now thriving. However, doctors still have them on antiretrovirals and they've not yet detected the virus in the baby. So that's a hopeful sign. Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi says this pioneer operation potentially opens up a new pool of living donors who could save many lives. And television personality Bonang Matebe presented herself in the specialised commercial crimes court in Johannesburg today. She's facing charges related to alleged tax fraud. Matebe is being charged for taxes outstanding from 2008 to 2017 for personal tax and company tax from 2014 to 17. Matebe's case has been postponed until the 14th of November. Still ahead on eNews, authorities battling through heaps of rubble in the Indonesian town of Palu, hoping to find more bodies 6 days after the deadly earthquake and tsunami. And of course, all your business news with Michael.
That's right, Sally. South Africa punching above its weight in some areas of the economy, but when it comes to jobs, it is taking a beating. We'll explore the implications in a moment.
Let's talk business now with Michael Morelia. Good evening to you, Michael. You want to talk about jobs and you're going to give us a global perspective as we are in that massively important job summit.
Yeah, that's right, Sally. Unemployment in South Africa standing at 27%. So we wanted to take a quick look at other countries and other nations, governments, how they are actually dealing with unemployment in their countries. And we're going to start with the world's biggest economy, which of course is the United States. And they're at a record low. In fact, unemployment in that country down to 3.9% under Donald Trump, interestingly enough. Let's move on and take a quick look at Europe. Greece has the highest unemployment rate on that continent. But some lessons for South Africa here. Just 5 years ago, the jobless rate was at 28%. They've managed to bring it down below 20%. Remember, Greece had a massive financial crisis. They actually needed several bailouts. So perhaps some good news and some hope for South Africa there. A quick look at emerging markets now. Turkey, of course, we're often put in the same basket as countries like Turkey. Unemployment there just 10%, even though they are dealing with a crisis when it comes to their currency. Argentina, also an emerging market. Unemployment even less in that country, 9.6%. So perhaps some lessons that we can learn from those emerging markets. Finally, Sally, we tend to pride ourselves in our role as the strongest economy, or at least the most developed economy on the African continent. But Nigeria doing much better when it comes to the jobless rate. It's slightly below 19%, substantially below South Africa, which of course is approaching 28% at the moment. So some worrying signs there, Sally, when it comes to our approach to joblessness.
Absolutely, and that 27% is about 6 million people, and it's even more if you count the people who've given up. It's more like 9.5 million, so it's really very high numbers. Has the Job Summit affected the market positively? I mean, there was a really strong message from our president today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we did keep a close eye on the numbers during the president's speech. To start off with, Sally, the JSE was almost 0.5% down, but it did recover some of those losses in the afternoon session. Not clear if that was in response to Cyril Ramaphosa's speech, but overall not a bad day for the local stock exchange. Let's take a quick look at the mining stocks and the resources. They had a particularly good day. Of course, that comes after news that the Chamber of Mines, or the Minerals Council as it's known, had really accepted the mining charter, so it seems that there is some momentum for that particular sector. The gold mine is doing particularly well. Let's very quickly take a look at commodities, relatively stable. And what was important for traders, Sally, was that Brent crude moved below $85 a barrel. There has been concern about supply, with America set to impose sanctions on Iran, but some good news for motorists. Brent crude below $85 a barrel, which is important for the petrol price going forward. And finally, currencies. The rand has taken a real knock, Sally. 14.35 at one stage yesterday morning. Around about 36 hours later, it's now close to 15 against the dollar. Remember, the World Bank did revise its forecast for South Africa and the growth prospects for South Africa yesterday, and it seems that may be having an effect.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that update, Michael. Let's take a quick look at international news now. And it's almost a week since Indonesia was hit by an earthquake and then a tsunami. Authorities are still battling to find all those trapped under the rubble. Now, this particular footage is of a housing complex in Palu. There's not much left of it. They've recovered 8 bodies today in this area alone. Police say they don't expect to find any survivors. Over 1,400 people have died in the disaster, and that number sadly likely to grow as remote areas have not even been accessed yet. Ahead we go to Candice at our weather centre in Cape Town. Candice has our weather. Hey Candice, what's the weekend holding for us?
Well, Sally, it actually looks like a nice dry and warm weekend for much of South Africa, and that's after a cloudy and cold day over the eastern part of South Africa on Thursday. We even had reports of snow and rainfall over that part of the country. Now, on Friday morning, we're expecting a bit of fog along the northeastern escarpment. Overall, a sunny and warm day. A bit of cloud builds up along the KwaZulu-Natal coastline towards the evening, with a hot day expected over the northwestern parts. In the Northern Cape, we're expecting another sunny and dry day. Temperatures steadily warm up here. Very hot for Alexander Bay, or warm overnight at 22 with a high of 33. We'll see most of those highs in the upper 20s and low 30s. Temperatures also continue to warm for the Western Cape with a mostly clear day. A high of around 30 for Cape Town, George remaining mild at 22 degrees. Much warmer for the Eastern Cape on Friday. Temperatures head into the 20s here, 25 as we head towards Bishu. Warmer temperatures are forecast for KwaZulu-Natal with a dry day, a bit of cloud along the coast with a a mild to warm afternoon in store. Cold in the morning for the Highveld, 21 in the afternoon for Ermelo, Skukuza at a sunny 28. You'll see warm temperatures throughout Limpopo, a bit of fog along the escarpments in the morning, 28 for Lepelale and Thabazimbi. Sunny and warm as we head towards northwest, 27 for Mahikeng and Potchefstroom. A chilly start to the day for the Free State, mild over the eastern parts but warm over the western and northern part of the province. Gauteng can expect a chilly start to the day, mini minimums in the single digits, but with highs heading into the mid-20s in the afternoon. This weekend we're expecting dry weather across South Africa. You'll see temperatures continuing to warm as we head into Sunday, with a high of 31 degrees for Pretoria and Cape Town. Hot over the central and southern interior with a comfortable and warm day for KwaZulu-Natal. That's all from the Weather Centre for now. Have a great night.
Thank you, Candice. And before we go, let's just recap your top story of the evening. President Ramaphosa urges the country to buy only local products as he outlines a number of interventions to address unemployment in South Africa. From me and the team, it's a very good night.